صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
The war which is coming, the big nuclear war which is coming, to which we'll refer subsequently inshallah, is meant to deliver to Israel something called Pax Judaica, which will replace Pax Americana, which itself replaced Pax Britannica. That's why they want the big war. Who is this actor who wants the Khilafah to be destroyed by hook or by crook? Who is this actor? This dominant civilization? Only Iqbal knew the answer. No one else. None of the ulama, none of the maulanas, none of the shuyukh, not Deoban, not Brelvi, no one knew it. None. None of the distinguished scholars of Islam, of the world of Islam, nobody knew it. With the possible exception of Sayyid Nursi, Badi'u Zaman of Turkey. But Iqbal it was who said, and I now have to quote him again in Urdu, and they can't take it away from him. You can't do it. It's there. खुल गए याजूज और माजूज के लश्कर तमाम. Some of you will say, oh, we heard this before, you know. We never thought about it. खुल गए याजूज और माजूज के लश्कर तमाम. All the forces of Gog and Magog have now been released. It's not just that they have been released from behind the barrier built by Zulkarnain in Surah Al-Kahf of the Quran. More than that. They've all been released and they've all spread out over the world. Kul gaye Ya'juj or Ma'juj ke lashkar tamam. All. So this is the world order of Gog and Magog. That is what Iqbal is saying. Chashme Muslim dekhle tafsir harfi yansilu. Now Muslims, you better turn your eyes, direct your attention to the word yansilun. Direct your attention to the word yansilun. Only one scholar in the whole world of Islam, only one, not only recognized it, but proclaimed it. What is this word yansilun? He's referring to the Quran. That's what he's doing. Allah is speaking in the Quran about Gog and Magog, who are not some strange creatures from Mars or Venus, or living somewhere deep in the interior of the earth. No, they're human beings. Stop that nonsense. Allah is speaking about Gog and Magog, who have PhDs in oppression. In the Ya'juj wa Ma'juj mufsiduna fil ard. That is Surah Al-Kahf. My book here is on Surah Al-Kahf. You can have the time to just read it. It's an Islamic view of Gog and Magog in the modern world. Gog and Magog are people created by Allah, and He gave them a power that is irresistible, and they use that power to oppress. So Zulkarnain built a barrier, and to use the language of chess, he checkmated them. He didn't destroy them. He checkmated them, means they're harmless. And you know, when Allah said Qarnain, Zulkarnain, Qarn can mean a horn, or Qarn can mean an age. So Surah Al-Kahf is speaking about Zulkarnain, who will manifest power on 2 occasions. And on 2 occasions he's going to checkmate Gog and Magog. The first time he did it by building a barrier. And we know where it was located. From the Quran, do your homework. Where is my book? Yes, this one. It was there in the Caucasus Mountains, the Black Sea. And Crimea commands the Black Sea. If you control Crimea, you control the Black Sea. Did you hear that? This is the first time. And Allah is saying there's a second time. That power is going to re-emerge in that part of the world. And that power is going to do the same thing it did the first time. It's going to checkmate them, and NATO can do nothing to stop it. Praise be to Allah, who allowed us to understand the Quran. They're going to be checkmated as they were the first time. Iqbal is speaking about that Gog and Magog. And in Surah Al-Anbiya, there are 2 verses which end with the word Yansilun. Chashme Muslim Dekhali, Tafsir Harfi Yansilun. In Surah Al-Anbiya, Allah says, وَحَرَامٌ عَلَى قَرْيَةٍ أَهْلَكْنَاهَا. Allah speaks of a town which He destroyed. And having destroyed that town, He expelled the people. And then placed a ban on them that they can never return to reclaim that town as their own. Until when? حتى إذا فتحت يأجوج ومأجوج. Until Gog and Magog are released. فتحت فتح, to open. Until Fatiha, Surah Al-Fatiha, opening. فتحت, until Gog and Magog are released. وهم من كل حدب ينسلون. And after being released, they spread out in all directions, taking control of the world in the world order of Gog and Magog. Iqbal recognized. Iqbal understood that Gog and Magog were released. Iqbal understood that we have lost the Khilafah because of Gog and Magog. And Iqbal knew that the Khilafah cannot be restored so long as Gog and Magog control the world. He knew it. And he said it. But I want to take you now back to that spot in the Caucasus Mountains, because we want to fine-tune our attempt to identify Gog and Magog. It is not sufficient to say that Gog and Magog are the European Christians and European Jews. No, because amongst the European Christians and European Jews, there will be those who become Muslims, there will be those who are our friends and allies. Do not make the mistake of declaring of all Jews that they are your enemies and all Christians, they are your enemies. That will be quite foolish. An American woman went to Israel and stood up in front of an Israeli bulldozer to protect a Palestinian home. And the bulldozer ran over her. The media, of course, buried it. Can you say of that woman that she is your enemy? Can you say of that woman that she is Gog and Magog, but she is white and she is American?
So we will have peanuts in our heads if we make a blanket statement, all white people, or all Americans, or all Christians, or all Jews. Not at all. We have to look for a people who will eventually be moving from that northern area and moving towards Jerusalem. Shortly after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, something very mysterious happened in that part of the world that historians have chosen to bury. A tribe called the Khaza chose to embrace Judaism. And so the world witnessed for the first time the very strange phenomenon of a non-Semitic people becoming Jews. Non-Semitic becoming Jews. And these people, the Khaza, chose to convert to Judaism, but they did so not for any religious reasons. They were not so much interested in the Kitab and to follow the law. They embraced Judaism for purposes of political expediency. They were sandwiched between Islam and Christianity, Byzantine Christianity, and they chose Judaism.
Let me tell you about the flight of the Khazar warriors out of northern Turkey in 500 AD. They were a despicable bunch. You could go to the king of the Khazars and rent an army from him, an army of 40 or 50,000 men. But it didn't matter what kind of a deal you struck with their monarch. He wasn't called a king, he was called a shagan. Once the battle was done, they rape and pillage. Doesn't matter what kind of agreement you had with the king. That's the way it ended up. And so as a consequence, people in the area garnered a great deal of animosity for these Khazar warriors. And in 500 AD, they were driven out. And as they came down south out of Turkey, some fled to the west into Romania and Hungary and became the Gypsies. The rest followed their monarch, the Chagan, up into the steppes of Russia and north of there to the Caucasus Mountains. And as they settled in there, they quite easily enslaved the relatively peaceful agrarian Slavic folks that were indigenous to the area. Then they came under pressure to take sides in a growing contention around them. Coming down from the north was Eastern Orthodox Christianity, and coming up from the south was Islam. And they knew that if they succumbed to pressure from either of those to join their organization and embrace their philosophy, it would surely offend the other. And so what they did was a politically expedient maneuver. He called in all the religious leaders of the area, and he got their input, and after the input, he announced, for me and my people, we're talking about 20 million people and about 4,000 nobility, for me and my people, we choose to become Jews. Now, this was not a heartfelt conversion. This was not something that was deep in their breast that they felt they needed to make a conversion because they thought that was the proper way to serve the Creator. This was something that was done as a political expediency. Now, these people have run into some trouble over time. In 965 AD, they were overrun by the Varganians, which was Swedish-ruled Slavic people. Varganian is the Russian word for Vikings. And they were militarily defeated, which curbed their expansionist philosophy for some time. And then in 1140, they were literally overrun by the Mongols for Kublai Khan and Genghis Khan, and they were driven down into Eastern Europe.
These European Jews who have no racial, biological connection with the Banu Israel multiplied. وهم من كل حدب ينسلون. Nasl, they multiplied and breeded to such an extent that today 9 in every 10 Jews in the world, 90% or more, are European Jews. They outnumber the Semitic Jews by 9 to 1 or 10 to 1. These European Jews, if you look at the list of names of Nobel Prizes for science, for literature, when you name it, you will find that these are people who far exceed the rest of mankind in their intellectual brilliance, in their academic achievements, in their scientific research. They are a people different from the rest of mankind. And then you find that these Khaza who became Jews also chose to become Christians. So you have the Khaza infiltrating the camp of Judaism and infiltrating the camp of Christianity as well. And from the ranks of these Khaza Jews and Khaza Christians, the emergence of the Jewish-Christian alliance can be traced. It is this Jewish-Christian alliance, Khaza, which eventually gives birth to the Zionist movement. The Zionist movement has absolutely nothing to do with Banu Israel. It is an essentially and an exclusively European achievement.
Between 1918 and 1948, for 30 years, the Jews are allowed to return to the Holy Land. Not Banu Israel. Banu Israel are still in Yemen, and in Iraq, and in Iran, and in Morocco. No, these are white people who become Jews. They have no genetic links at all with Arabs. They're not cousins of the Arabs. They're not from Ishaq alayhi salam. And the Arabs are from Ismail alayhi salam. And so genetically linked as cousins. No. These European people have no genetic links whatsoever with Banu Israel, but they're Jews.
Allah Azza wa Jal will that the first of the destructions occur. And this is, as I said, in 587 BC, and this was when the original temple was destroyed. This temple was, when it was destroyed, it was the first time the Jews had to flee. It is called the diaspora, because since that time they've never had a unified land up until, as we know, 1947. So they have always been in different lands. That was the beginning, the first diaspora. And it was at that diaspora that large groups left for many lands. We know for a fact they went, the majority of them went to Iran. And they stayed there for many decades or hundreds of years until finally King, Cyrus allowed them to come back. And so many of them came and many of them remained. Also they went to areas of Iraq, and we know that Iraq had a lot of Jews in the time of the Umayyads. Early Umayyads was full of Jews, Baghdad as well, Kufa and Baghdad. Where did they come from, this first diaspora? It is also said that some went to Yemen, but it appears that the majority of the Yemenite Jews are from the second expulsion, and Allah knows best. Do they go back that ancient or not? We know that Yemen had a lot of Jews in it. We know this up until now. There were Jews until 1947, and the Yemeni Jews and the Falasha of Ethiopia are of course related. They are in fact the same branch. So from Yemen they then went to Habash or Ethiopia, so those two are also the branch of the Yahud. After the coming of Isa ibn Maryam, after the coming of Jesus Christ, under the Emperor Titus in 70 CE, under the Emperor Titus in 70 CE, there was a second destruction of the temple, and this led to a second diaspora. A second time that the Yahud fled in many different areas. Some of them running and fleeing helter and skelter. Some of them wander down south into the Arabian Peninsula because Jerusalem is due north, and they're just wandering down and they come across this fertile ground that has lots of date palms. There are no inhabitants there at the time, and they settle down over there. And this is the original Yathrib then, right? So the Yahud are the ones who actually found Yathrib. And one group settles in Yathrib, another settles in Khaybar. And Yathrib and Khaybar are relatively close to each other, okay? One group settles in Yathrib, another Khaybar, and it is also said another group continues down, and the largest of them continues down until they reach Yemen, right? And the Yemeni Jews were the largest quantity of Jews in the Arabian Peninsula.
What is a Jew? If you look back in your Old Testament, your Bible, there was 12 Hebrew tribes. The 10 northern tribes are called the House of Israel. The 2 southern tribes were called Benjamin and Judah. More properly pronounced, Judah. So this is what I would call real Jews, people from the tribe of Judah. And when we start talking about the New World Order, we are not talking about these people at all. We're talking about these Khazar warriors that only pretended to embrace Judaism. And so today, we find that about 92% of the people who claim to be Jews really aren't. They don't have a drop of Semitic blood in their veins. They are Khazar warriors with a new bent on life and a goal to conquer.
It is these Khazar who, having become Jews, first Jews and secondary Christians, who built an empire that was the most powerful in Europe and Central Asia. And when the armies of Islam had simultaneously defeated the 2 superpowers in the world, the Persian Empire and Byzantium, and had emerged as the most powerful military force in the world, Khazar blocked our way. We could not defeat them. It is from this part of the world that they spread out. They spread out to Eastern Europe, they spread to Russia, and eventually crossed the sea to the United States. And they are at the heart of the revolutions which transformed Europe from Christendom into modern Western civilization. They are at the heart of the Bolshevik revolution in Russia, which overturned Christianity in Russia. They are at the heart of the French Revolution, in consequence of which the back of the Christian church is broken. The prohibition of riba is now consigned to the garbage bins. And they are at the heart of the creation of the Zionist movement. It is these Khazar Jewish and Christian, who now move to the Holy Land, assisted by a strange and mysterious Jewish Holocaust. And the history of that will one day be revealed on Judgment Day. How much was their input into the Holocaust? So that you have an exodus now of these European Jews to the Holy Land. When the state of Israel comes into being, who it is who controls power in Israel? Not the Oriental Jews, the darker-skinned Jews. No, they are second-class citizens. The ones who control power in Israel are the European Jews. Gog and Magog are working in tandem with Dajjal. And the objective is that Dajjal must establish his rule over the whole of mankind. And he is using Gog and Magog as his foot soldiers.